All right, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Bullpen Blues. I'm your co-host, Kevin Dixon, joined by our good buddy, David Esser. David, how are we doing?
Kevin, happy to be on the mic.
It's been a minute.
Just about a week, but a lot has happened in that time, per usual. The Phillies, they showed some life against Chicago. We're actually recording this episode during their Thursday night game. They're winning at the moment, so hopefully we don't jinx it there. But, Kevin, it's been a minute, but decent vibes with the Phillies at the moment, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, they caught the Cubs at the right time, right? I mean, that's how I look at it. The bats have come to life. It is 4-0 Phillies right now. Do want to apologize for any confusion. Basically, the pace of this game is not moving at all. We were on pace to record around midnight. It's not really beneficial midweek, so we decided it might be best to just hop on in the middle of the game. So let's hope that when this episode drops, the Phillies are 42-43, and they pick up a half game in the division because, which is customary with the Mets, another game was rained out again. They're going to have another doubleheader. It's certainly been an interesting week since we've been on, but like you said, vibes are up with the Phils, man. We got to keep chopping along.
No, and it's definitely awkward because, as silly as it sounds, winning 3 of 4 against the Cubs versus splitting against the Cubs
huge
really changes how we view this series. They're up right now. They absolutely destroyed the Cubs in the first 2 games, put up a ton of runs. Obviously, Game 3 was probably Wheeler's worst start this year, but there was some flukiness involved, a lot of weak contact, bloop singles, nonsense like that. But for the most part, Kevin, if they're able to hold on tonight, close the gap on 500 just a little bit, come out with 2 big series wins against the Padres and the Cubs, little bit of light there, a little bit of optimism can be had.
I think the biggest thing, too, is they're on the road, which they do not play well on the road. So if they could take 3 or 4, I understand the Cubs are really struggling, but if they could take 3 or 4 against the Cubbies, I'm with it. Then we go into Boston. Hopefully we can take 2 or 3. Which brings me to, I think they need to be 5-2 on this road trip said and done heading into the All-Star break. It would put them, I believe, a game over 500. I think it's very needed with this team. Was my math wrong? Would it put them at 500? They win the night, then they win 2, lose 1. Yeah, so they'd be 44-44, right? It can't be under 500 at the break. Basically, is the point I'm getting at here.
No, and we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about, the upcoming trade deadline, how big not only this week is, but the following week they play the NL East 12 times. They have 4 against the Marlins, 4 against the Braves, 4 against the Nationals. So this is kind of it right now. There's been a lot of talk about the Phillies maybe switching gears back into a buying mindset based on how they've looked. The biggest thing, Kevin, as we've been talking back and forth through Texas, is the lineup's healthy. This is the first time since opening week since we've seen a full healthy lineup where everyone's clicking. Just having that extra lefty bat in Didi Gregorius, he's been okay. He's been nothing special out there. It does seem to add some balance. You have McCutchen really heating up, and you're looking at a lineup that was what we all expected it to be for the whole season, which of course is not what we've gotten. More injuries are probably going to happen, knock on wood. But I think
you're gonna put that out there.
I apologize, but I think the front office, Girardi, Dombrowski, Sam Fuld, I think they can look at this and say, all right, maybe this is the way our offense is supposed to look when everyone's healthy.
Yeah, my only thing is, don't be over aggressive at the deadline. Don't pull a Padres and just I'm not slighting the Padres, but don't do what they did, sell everything. Let's be realistic. I think this team should passively buy.
Well, hang on, time out. I have to interrupt. This is different than what you've been telling me throughout the week.
If you're going to buy, it has to be a team-controlled guy. It's basically what I'm getting at.
Well, so for people who aren't familiar with what you've thrown out names like Jose Barrios. I would not
control. Team control.
That's not a team control. He's a
yeah,
star.
But I'm saying don't sell everything for a rental.
Yes,
I don't sell everything for Chris Bryant or one of these huge names that are set to hit the market. If you are gonna be aggressive, it has to be someone who's going to be here.
Yeah, and I think everyone agrees in that standpoint that this year, even if they heat up, even if they stay healthy, even if Nola gets back to Nola and the bullpen gets figured out, this is not a year they're going to win the World Series. It's just not.
No,
Like,
exactly.
that's just where it is. The rest of the NL is way too good at the moment. It's just not going to happen. But you look to add guys under team control, whether it's someone big like a Barrios or someone smaller like a Richard Rodriguez, reliever for the Pirates. That's what they should be looking at, kind of regardless of what happens over the next couple of weeks. You got to look to make the team better. I think maybe shuffling around the bullpen and selling some pieces in quotations helps. But I definitely agree that getting no rentals this year. There's no point in adding
Yeah.
rentals.
If you're going to add a rental, it has to be the kind of thing that they did in 2018, where it was basically just severely buying low on like an Asdrubal Cabrera or Wilson Ramos. Like they made those moves that year and didn't give anything up. So that's if you're going to go after a rental type player, I think it should be that kind of player, something where you're not giving up anything of value. But if you are going to make a splash for a guy like Jose Barrios, look, like I'm on board with that. It's a guy who would be with this team moving forward, or a Craig Kimbrell who has a team option for 2022. He would be here moving forward. I want somebody who's going to be a piece of the puzzle next year. Don't just sell it all and give away your best prospects for, a Chris Bryant who's going to hit the open market. And I've been saying I want Chris Bryant in Philly. I don't want them to give everything away when they could just sign him.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where I think for the first time we're going to get to see Dave Dombrowski truly in action. We've talked a lot, and I've been vocal that I was disappointed with a lot of the moves Dombrowski made this past offseason. Still am. Don't know why we signed Chase Anderson. Don't know why we brought in Brandon Kinsler. Matt Joyce, who knows where he is? He's messing around in single A at the moment. But now we've had a full 80-plus games. Dave Dombrowski, his big thing is trades. That's always been his big thing. He knows how to win a trade. But I'm curious to see how aggressive he's going to be, because they only have about $4 or $5 million, in luxury cap space, and that doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room. You can only bring in so many players. You can't bring in anyone on a super huge contract. I mean, people have thrown out Aroldis Chapman as a closer they could target. It's just on too much money. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, I'm definitely curious to see where Dombrowski goes with the deadline, or whether it's from a buying perspective or a selling perspective.
No, I agree. Because let's face it, they need bullpen help.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an understatement.
Yeah. Would love a bench piece. I've been very critical of Jankowski ever since his ridiculously low baseball IQ play, getting picked off the second base from home plate against the Nationals a couple weeks ago. About a month ago now, I would guess. But he provides some better defense. Carry him over Joyce moving forward. I think they should probably just DFA Matt Joyce. I don't see any reason to him still be here. But I'd like to see them add that kind of player, someone who can help them defensively late in games. And let's face it, they need a rotation on David, because if you do sneak into the playoffs, who's starting game 4? Vince Velasquez or Matt Moore? Like seriously? So we're punting a game at that point, because you're realistically, I know they're 4-1 or whatever, and Matt Moore starts, but when you're facing playoff caliber teams, you're going to get rocked with either one of those guys in your rotation. So they probably need another rotation arm, and they need a closer. And I understand that people are high on Ranger Suarez. He had one outing. Where he got a save. And that doesn't. I'm not, trying to take anything away from him. He should get another chance. But people were acting like they solved their issue. He had one save. Like the narrative the next day was crazy. That tells you how bad it is. That people were so fired up about that. He worked a 1-2-3 inning.
Well, and I wrote a story about Ranger after that, and I said, look, there's pros and cons to Ranger in the closer spot, because as important as having a good closer is, especially with the way Girardi wants to run his bullpen, where he's old school, he's a traditionalist in the sense of, I want a closer who could in theory pitch 3 days in a row. That's important, but also having that long man's important, and that's where Ranger has been at his best. We thought maybe Bailey Falter was going to be that guy. I don't know how long he's going to stick around, but Ranger's at his best, coming in, giving you 2 to 3 innings every couple of days. Let's say, Vince Velasquez, he can only give you 4 innings one day. You need to have that, that extra wild card in Ranger Suarez to come in and take down multiple innings. And maybe Chase Anderson comes back and gives you that. But probably not, right?
Yeah, I mean, are we even going to see him again? Like I understand Matt Moore is kind of giving you. I mean, I don't want to say he was good his last outing because he went 4 innings and like didn't really do much, but like, are we going to continue to rely on these guys? I mean, the Phillies have done a nice job of hanging around. They've played a gauntlet in the first half, and something that has really jumped out to me is currently teams over 500. David, the Phillies have played 42 games. They're 19-23 against those teams. The Mets have played 18 games against teams over 500. So the fact that the Phillies are right in this race still, considering the strength of schedule compared to the teams that they're chasing, it has to mean something, right? Like it has to mean something. And they have the second easiest schedule in the second half. So, I mean, that has to play a role, right? Like you would think.
I think to an extent, I think sometimes the over 500 versus under 500 stat in the first half can be misleading because there's teams like the Cubs, for example, who start off looking like one of the best teams in baseball, and by the time September rolls around, they're completely out of the race.
Yeah, but that stat takes into account teams currently over 500. It's not against teams that are 500 when you play them. This is just this stat that I have up on the screen right now here on our YouTube channel. That's teams that are currently over 500. I mean, the Phillies have played significantly more teams over 500 than the rest of their division.
Well, I guess additionally, I think, and this is something we've talked about before, the Phillies have a tendency to play up to their opponents and then also play down to their opponents.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mean, we saw it against the Padres. The Phillies had no business being in that series, and they played up to the Padres. They looked better than the Padres at times, which was crazy. Considering how much better San Diego's roster is at the moment. And then, you take on the Marlins a few weeks back and the Phillies look like a last place team. And it's frustrating. It's confusing. No one knows who to blame because this has been happening since 2017. So I don't know if I'm putting a ton of stock into it. I guess you could put a little bit of stock on New York's side where maybe New York's not as good as their record projects, which I think is reasonable. I watched New York play a few times, and that they look good. They obviously have a really good rotation, but their bullpen's shaky. I think their roster's flawed. Yeah, their
offense isn't very good. I mean, look, we can say that it might not mean much, but I'm looking forward to the Phillies being able to play Baltimore in the second half and Pittsburgh. Like they get to play these. Like the Mets have a series right now with the Pirates. Let's be real. They're probably going to win 3 or 4, right? You would think. I mean, the Pirates stink. I'm looking forward to the Phillies to be able to play those teams because if you want to get to the postseason, you should beat up on those clubs.
Well, and it does more than sometimes just the win-loss. I mean, as we're seeing right now with the Cubs, it does kind of give you some momentum. You catch a team at a bad time. You catch a team that's struggling. But a team like Pittsburgh, who's been struggling all year, it can put you in a better spot when you play some of the better teams. So I might not be putting as much stock into it as you are just because I've seen the Phillies play down to their opponents so frequently. But it's probably something the front office has in the back of their mind where they're saying, look, the schedule is going to ease up a little bit. We're hovering around 500. There's at least a logical avenue into being a good baseball team as opposed to just hoping the Mets collapse.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. The Phillies have played the Giants. They played the Dodgers. They played the Padres. They've now played the Cubs. They played the Cardinals a few times. They played the Brewers. They've played a ton of the National League East. I mean, who have they really played that's bottom dwellers? They played Colorado. They haven't played Arizona yet. They haven't played Pittsburgh yet. They haven't played Baltimore, Kansas City. I mean, there's some bad ball clubs that are on the schedule in the second half that, look, that stat doesn't mean anything, like you said, if you don't beat those under 500 teams. It doesn't mean anything. So when the Phillies play those clubs, if they want to be a postseason team, they need to be better. They need to beat those teams. And it starts even tonight with the Cubs because the Cubs are right in around the same spot as the Phillies. But look, they've lost 11 of 12. Their win last night was their first one since like June 26th or something. So, I mean, it even starts tonight. Like the Phillies have to finish this out and take 3 or 4. And then they're going to Boston against a very good Boston Red Sox team where the pitching matchups this weekend aren't very advantageous for the Phillies as they have Velasquez and Matt Moore on the mound. But on Sunday, David. They face a familiar foe. Nick Pivetta on the
Yeah,
mound Sunday against Aaron Nola. More wins than Nola. Better ERA than Nola. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm sure he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and some of the guys in that Phillies lineup are going to be like, we need to hit this guy around.
Yeah, because Pavetta made some comments 2 weeks ago about, and granted, I think he's 100% right.
I was going to say, do I disagree with them? Not really.
For any of those who missed it, Pavetta said something along the lines of, getting to a winning organization helped him unlock his potential. And look, Pavetta, love you,
no
guy.
Accountability with that guy.
Well, and also his ERA is north of 4. He's not actually having all that great of a year. It's better.
Okay.
He's been okay.
I mean, Phillies would kill to have him as their number 4 starter this year, and I don't think it would have worked anyway. I really don't. I think he needed to change the scenery, but the way he's pitching would be better than Moore, Velasquez, or Anderson.
Sure. It was quite the victory lap for a number 4 starter to take in early, July. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think I'm more so worried about Nola in that matchup. Don't really care what Pavetta's doing. Nola it's just been bad. It's just been bad. I mean, he's got a ERA of 6 over his last 7 outings. I don't know what the problem is. It's hard to tell. You can look at all the analytics and the StatCast numbers, and he's just getting smoked. And so, Boston's playing some real good baseball. That lineup has a ton of all-stars in it. Nola's got to find a way, and he's historically pitched well against Boston. So
yes,
if we could go into the break riding off a good 6-7 inning outing for Nola, where he only gives up 1 to 2 runs, it'd make me feel a little bit better, because Kevin, this team is going absolutely nowhere with Nola pitching to a 4-5 ERA.
Yeah, I mean, they need him to be better. And I said to you the other day, I believe he's been very predictable on the mound. And now I don't know how much of it is him as well mixed in with the game calling. But even so, he needs to be better. His stuff doesn't look the same as it's looked in the past. He hasn't been able to command his fastball, which is huge. So they need to get him back on track, because if they can get him figured out again, as Zach Eflin just completed another shutout inning, he's gone 6 strong tonight after throwing 50 pitches through the first 2. He's probably done, I would say. He's at 96, but he's been pretty good recently. Zach Wheeler's been Zach Wheeler. We've been saying all along that the Phillies have this 3-headed monster in the rotation. Aaron Nola's been the one that has been letting them down. You would have thought coming in that Zach Eflin would have been the weak link. And granted, we disagree on Eflin a bit, but overall he's been solid. I mean, he's definitely been a steady rotation arm for this team. They need Aaron Nola to get to 80% of what he was. You don't even need him to get back to the level that he was at, because you have Zach Wheeler. But if he can get back to mid-3s, low 3s, I mean, why not, man? It's going to be really, really important in the second half that he gets it figured out if this team's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, he's so you can add anybody you want at the trade deadline. This team was built under the impression that Nola and Wheeler are going to be one of the best 1-2 punches in baseball, and thus far, it's really just been Wheeler alone, up at the top as the true number 1, and then you have Eflin, who's been, again, a very productive outing tonight. He's been a solid number 3, and then Nola's just not been good at all. Kevin, I wanted to switch gears real quick. Let's talk about someone who's completely overperformed, way exceeded our expectations. Is the team's new cleanup hitter. I think he might be sticking there. Andrew McCutchen. The guy's just been insane. It's been a completely different version of McCutchen. We signed him to be an on-base machine, a leadoff hitter, and now he's one of the best power hitters in the middle of the lineup. And it looks like a much more comfortable spot for him, where he's less worried about drawing walks. He's less worried about getting on base. Kevin, he's swinging to hit balls 400 feet, and he's doing it. It's crazy.
Yeah, we had him DFA'd. He was gone if me and you were running the team. He was out of here. He's been a revelation, man. He looks like vintage Kutch. I have his numbers here up on the screen. In his last 30 days, 292 with a 407 OBP, 604 slug, so OPS over 1,000, 8 homers, 27 RBIs. He's been damn good. Moving him back to the middle of the order has made all the difference in the world, in my opinion. It's helped Harper, who also has 8 RBIs in his last 7. Like, he's starting to get going a little bit as well. It's been huge, David. I don't think you can stress enough. It's been huge.
And it's eliminated a roster need. I mean, we were talking earlier in the show.
David, I got to cut you off.
Yes, sir.
Brad Miller just went deep again.
No way.
3 homer night for Brad Miller.
Unbelievable.
Oh, I apologize for cutting you off, but it is now 6-0 Phils. Brad Miller with a 2-run homer.
And I just want to say, while we're hyping, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
People slandered Joe Girardi for benching Hoskins for Miller.
Yeah.
And look, you could have put him in for Bohm. You could have put him out in the outfield. I don't really care. This was a situation where Joe Girardi leaned on the analytics.
Yep.
Brad Miller was a lefty, and the guy on the mound was a righty who didn't know how to pitch to lefties, and it worked. And Joe Girardi gets a lot of crap. He gets crap on this show, but he deserves tonight because this was a really well-managed game, and I feel confident they're going to win this ball game. I don't know with the bullpen. They're up 6, but Brad Miller, we love Brad Miller. Kevin actually, he sent me he tweeted out earlier tonight about how Brad Miller needs to be in the lineup more, Kevin. I'm going to steal that tweet and write a whole article about it because I agree with you. But yeah, Brad Miller rocks.
Yeah, I'm sorry to get you off the Kutch train there, but that felt like it was worth reporting. So he's now 3 for 4 tonight, 3 long balls, 5 RBIs. Wow, man, they need to play him more, as you just mentioned. I'm all for platooning him with Alec Bohm in the second half because you even mentioned to me it probably helps their defense, even getting him in there over Bohm. But I digress. So it is now 6-0 Phils. Back to McCutchen. He's not in the lineup tonight, but he has been a revelation, and there's a lot of people that now are looking to sell him off. I guess it really depends on the return, but like if we're serious about making a push for the East, I don't think it's realistic to look to move him.
For what it's worth, because I've seen some articles saying that as well, that Kutch could be a trade piece. No one's picking up the rest of his salary. Even with him red hot, no one's touching his $10 million salary.
Well, they would have to eat the money. Like they feel, and it's just if you're serious about making a push for the division, you don't move them.
Yeah, if you're moving him and eating money, like that's a bad situation. But Kutch, he's been great, and as I was saying before, Brad Miller went yard again. He's eliminated a roster need because once upon a time we were sitting here saying they might need 2 starting outfielders in the second half if they want to be competitive. It's debatable if they need one. Odubel Herrera has been in a bad.
They could use a defensive outfielder.
They could use someone else out there, but now you can kind of laser in on starting pitcher, bullpen, some sort of bench piece, probably in that order. I think getting a 5th starter is a little bit more important than the bullpen, to be honest. But it's 1A, 1B. It eliminates a need where you can feel comfortable that McCutchen's going to give you some sort of – he's not going to hit like this for the rest of the year, right? But he's also probably not going to be hitting in the 100s like he was at the start of the season. He's clearly found some sort of rhythm in the middle of the lineup.
Yeah, because it's not like he's had a hot week. I mean, it's been an extended period of time now where he's gotten going. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm not necessarily looking to move off of him just based on who the hell are you going to play out there, So I 100% agree. They're going to need him to continue to hit, but I do apologize to our listeners that Brad Miller kind of just threw a wrench into the whole flow of that conversation. I guess that's our fault for recording mid-game, but man, 3 homers for Bamboo Brad. He's up to 9 first-half homers now for Miller. He needed a night like this too, as he'd really been sputtering recently. But those counting stats are going to look really good after tonight.
Yeah, and kind of just swinging back to Brad, since he's now the hot topic of discussion. Getting him in the lineup moving forward against righties, something that's got to happen. Whether it's shuffling out.
Bohm. Yeah, I mean,
over Bohm, over Hoskins. Once Hoskins goes cold again, because he will go cold at some point.
Inevitable. It's inevitable. Yeah.
If McCutchen starts to slump a little bit, you could put Brad Miller out in the outfield. I mean, if you're feeling crazy. You could even put Brad Miller at second base and slide Gene back over to shortstop if he's comfortable playing there, or if Gene just needs a night off. Like there's ways to get Brad into the lineup, and I just think he has so much upside with his bat, being exploding for multi-home run nights. I mean, this is something he did as St. Louis's cleanup hitter last year.
He did at the end of 2019, David. Like the last month of that year, he was going crazy.
So yeah, good timing for Brad, because it was something we wanted to talk about, and he forced us to.
It's bamboo season, man.
Yes, sir. Kevin,
I do have a quick question for you regarding him, and it's just off the top of my head. Can you think of a more likable role player that the Phillies have had in the past 10 years? I mean, talk about a guy who he's played, 90 games with the Phillies probably over that 2 years that he's been here now. Love Brad Miller. And I feel like the fan base as a whole feels the same way. I can't think of a role player, a guy that's actually made an impact, because he's made an impact on the roster, that's been more likable.
I mean, I can.
Yeah?
Sean Rodriguez, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, how could I forget, of course.
Sean Rodriguez. Yeah. Remember when he hit a walk-off homer and they booed him?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, before we get too off topic, Kevin.
Bamboo Brad would never.
What's up?
Bamboo Brad would never slander
never.
the fans like that.
Never. Kevin, but before we sign off tonight, was there any other main talking points we wanted to get to?
Let's just close this out, man. Let's just close it out, and 6-0 lead now. Let's be real. This better be a win, David. I will be, excuse my language, so pissed off if they manage to lose this game that I will probably feel much differently than a lot of the information and thoughts that I've put out there on these airwaves tonight. So, Phillies bullpen, you better not blow it. I'm saying right now.
It's been a fairly positive episode, and I'd like to keep it that way, because again,
I do not want to get, because when we get done here, I'm going to go in and watch the rest of the game. Dave, I'll be very upset. Simple as that.
Yes, because again, to go from they just scored again.
Oh, I love it. Harper doubled, so that means somebody knocked him in.
Nah, Didi hit a home.
Didi 2-run homer. All right.
That's what he does. It's those lefties.
All right.
All right, 8-0. I'm calling it here. It's a wrap.
Yeah. Now I really mean it. They better not blow this game.
They're not going to blow it. They got it locked. Really, bullpen blowing a lead, never.
Come on. I do want to say, we mentioned Ranger. If they can find somebody, and if it is Ranger, that's great, who can solidify that role, I personally do believe the rest of the bullpen will fall into place, because then you can get guys into roles. There's no rhythm with the bullpen. You can get guys into an established role. They know when they're going to pitch and what situation they're going to come into. And you can say that's asking too much. I'm not saying you. I mean, generally people might say that. That's important. So if Archie can know he's the 7th inning guy, Neris and Alvarado know, all right, you guys are the 8th inning guys. And then Rangers closing. I know. I'm just stating, guys. I saw your face. I think as a whole, the Phillies do have some arms. There is upside in their bullpen. I like some of the arms in there. If they can just figure out their roles, I think it would be massive.
No, I actually agree. I only made a face because you mentioned Hector in the 8th inning. I'm done with Hector. I don't want to mention high leverage. And I actually think, not to harp on him too much, I do think Hector was kind of the biggest issue, where it was people have talked so long about him being moved off the closer spot. He doesn't want to do it, Kevin. He just wants to close. And I think they've tried to use him in other spots, and it's just a meltdown. I think he's been so insistent on he's the closer. I'm being paid to be the closer. I'm the closer. I've been closing here for years. I think it's thrown everything out of whack, because they should have been experimenting with the closer spot from day one. I mean, both of us wanted Archie Bradley as the closer to start the season. Then we thought it was going to be Coonrod. Then we thought it was going to be Alvarado. Now it might be Ranger Suarez. But yeah, if they can settle in, find some roles, and then add 1 or 2 more high leverage arms at the deadline, the bullpen shouldn't be as bad as it's been if you can start to settle guys into certain spots.
David, I could not agree more because there is good arms in their bullpen is not like bereft of talent like last year's bullpen is. Like Bradley is a good arm. Alvarado is a good arm. I know they drive us nuts, but they're not bad bullpen arms. Connor Brogdon, he has a lot of upside as well. Suarez, and look, we can rip Neris, but like as a reliever, Neris, he's not a bad reliever. He's not a good closer. We've been saying it for
He's been
months.
bad everything this year, Kevin.
He's been bad the past month and a half. He started off strong. I've been saying since the start of the year, though, I don't think he's a closer.
I just don't think he wants to be a reliever.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but if that's the case, then I don't know what to tell you.
It's like when we say Vince would make a great long man. In theory, yeah, and then you put him out there and he doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah, no, I know, but I basically like I think that there is upside in the bullpen. I don't think that they have no talent out there. They got to figure out the roles.
I do agree with that point. And the lasting point I wanted to make is these next few weeks leading into the All-Star break, coming out of the All-Star break, is really going to make or break the direction Dave Dombrowski goes. We touched on it briefly. We'll have more kind of trade targets, trade candidates, more deadline talk as things start to heat up, as some names start to get thrown out there. There hasn't been any major movement quite yet. You assume teams start to pick it up after the All-Star break. But yeah, I mean, clearly this team's got to do something. They either got to commit to offloading pieces and building up the farm again, or they have to commit to trying to make a push here. And I think they're leaning in the push direction. But again, it all depends how they look against Boston, how they look against the NL East for like the third time through this season, because it just seems like they constantly play interdivisional games. But that's really what's going to make or break the team moving forward. So it'll definitely be an exciting time for the team, for the podcast, because we'll have all sorts of names for you guys as we get closer to the deadline.
Yeah, and I do want to thank you guys for tuning in. We know we haven't been on recently. David especially has had a lot of stuff going on in his life. I'm getting near the end here with school and work. Not getting near the end with work, I wish, but it's been a crunch time for both of us. So, look, we're not thrilled that it's been over a week since we recorded, but the goal was to get back to some consistency here as we continue to move forward. So thanks again for tuning in, because trust us, it killed us not having Phillies content for you guys the past 7 or 8 days.
Yeah, and we'll have another giveaway here in a couple of days. Thank you to everyone who participated in the most recent ones. Any new listeners who found us through that, thank you so much. We'll have something coming up here in the next week or two. But yeah,
we'll have tickets coming up as well. There's going to be at least 1 or 2 more, I would say. It definitely 1 more ticket giveaway, potentially 2 through the rest of the year. So exciting times.
We got stuff coming your way. Exciting time for baseball, exciting time for podcasts. With that said, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to head over there and subscribe. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook. Every single one of those links will be down below in the subscription, along with our YouTube link, the link to our YouTube channel where we do live podcasts. Kevin has all sorts of graphics, statistics, overlays popping up. We'd really appreciate it if you came over and just tossed us a subscribe. It's completely free to do. It helps us out a ton.
Come hang out with us, man.
Yeah, come hang out. Come hang out. But
I did say as well, or I didn't say yet, but I wanted to say the possibility of a live pod could happen as well within the next few weeks. That's something that needs to be ironed out. Unfortunately, we don't have those exact details tonight, but it is something that we have both expressed interest in doing, just to be able to interact with some listeners as well. So that's something that could be coming down the pipeline too.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. With that said, we are signing off with the Phillies up 8-0. So if they lose, it's not on us because we're getting off. We're done.
Hey, they scored 4 more runs since we've been on. So
yeah, if anything, we've given them the lead. So you're welcome. With that said, we are the Bullpen Blues Podcast, and we'll be talking to you guys in a couple of days.
Go Phils.